Greetings and welcome to Union Street Hoops, a podcast dedicated to Valparaiso basketball and the Missouri Valley Conference. I am your host, Paul Oren. You can find me on Twitter at NWIOren, and you can find Union Street Hoops on NWI.com, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Pods, ApplePods, wherever your local podcasts are sold. It is Wednesday, March 3rd. It's my grandfather's birthday, as a matter of fact, and I am getting on the road to St. Louis here shortly, and I will have some fresh content for you each day from St. Louis. Tomorrow, there will be a podcast that'll come out with a conversation with Zion Morgan as leading into Valpo's Friday night tilt against Missouri State. I'll have a podcast after that game that will go up reviewing kind of what we saw, and then, planning on one on Saturday after Valpo's game on Saturday, on Sunday after the championship game. If Valpo were to lose at any point, I'm sure there will be a wrap-up at some point coming before I depart back for Northwest Indiana. Today, I'm thrilled. Special Arch Madness guest, John Kiser, returns to Union Street Hoops, and John is going to take a look back at a year later, kind of take us through Arch Madness a year ago, what that was like, some different things that he remembers, and quite frankly, some things he doesn't remember. As it's only been a year, but it's already been a year. It's kind of a strange kind of world we're living in right now with that. So John Kiser is going to take us back to the 2020 Arch Madness and Valpo's run all the way to the Missouri Valley Conference title game. Thrilled to have John here. Thrilled for you guys all to listen. By the way, if you are listening to Union Street Hoops and you're doing it on ApplePods, please go subscribe, leave a note, leave a review, anything like that. Always appreciate to get feedback, and it helps with the algorithm and all that stuff too. So thank you for listening. Here's John Kiser. John Kiser joins us. John, it's been a year. It's been a weird year for everybody, but can you believe it's been a year since you played your last collegiate basketball game? Because I understand you're playing other games right now, which we'll get to. But first of all, how are you doing? And can you believe it's been a year?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Enjoying life after college, working, not having to do homework. That's probably the best thing ever. And yeah, it's weird that it's coming up on a year from the last time I touched a college basketball court there in St. Louis, and kind of miss it, but it's other people's time, and it's fun watching Valpo when they're making threes. Kind of tough when they're not, but it's been fun watching them this last year.
I think what I've long heard from, and me having never played it in the college level, but what I hear from athletes is the further they get away from it, they still, around March, it starts to be like, man, I wish I could go grab those tennis shoes one more time, and wish I could have a chance to do that. And for you, it would be grab the tennis shoes, grab a bunch of ace bandage tape for your ankle, and then a walking boot and probably some crutches and all of that. But it's been a year. Has the purple gone away in your foot and your ankle? Are you healed up now?
Yeah, ankle's back to normal for the most part. Body's feeling good. I took probably 3 months off and got back on the court one day and was shooting air balls, but my body felt great. So
are you playing? Am I hearing correctly that you're like the star of the Indy Semi-Pro League? Is that what's going on down there?
No, I played in one league right there after the school year in the summer when I got back here, actually with Nick Davidson as well at the Fisher's Fieldhouse, or Best Choice Fieldhouse. Had some fun. It was just fun getting back on the court with Nick and some of my old high school teammates, and just having a fun time. So
I don't remember who told it to me. Maybe it was Schoon or somebody, but I heard rumor of like 36 points in a game.
So Nick stepped on the floor first day he stepped on the floor with us. He put up 40. So that was interesting. Wasn't expecting that, but it was fun watching him shoot the ball again on the court.
I thought Nick Davidson was a offensive juggernaut that was untapped in his time at Valpo.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, I want to go back. I don't really want to relive COVID or anything like that. I want to center in on Arch Madness from a year ago. you're coming into the tournament. You have to play on Thursday again. First things first, Valpo avoided Thursday this year. First time they've been able to do it. How difficult is it to have to play on that first night and then do a quick turnaround? I think maybe your sophomore year, you beat Indiana State, and then you had to play Loyola like 12 hours later, it felt like.
Yeah. I go back and think about just last year. I didn't really think about it much at the time because of all the adrenaline and everything, but that extra game was just detrimental to us there in that second half of the Bradley game in the championship, because with about 10 minutes to go, I could just tell my legs were done. I'm like, just walk the ball up the floor. And I mean, you saw it. Our legs were tired, our bodies were tired. We didn't hit threes in that zone and everything that Bradley hopped into. So it was it's huge not to play in that game, and I think it's great that they somehow, with that weird scenario that played out, got out of that Thursday game and on to Friday. And I'm excited to watch it. It's a late one though, 9:00, but they still will have a decent turnaround for that next day, anyways.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't know what's crazier, the fact that last year you guys went 9-9 in conference and had to play on Thursday, or that this year's team went 7-11 in conference and they got to avoid Thursday. I mean, that doesn't really seem fair.
Well, yeah, it was just a weird year in in the Missouri Valley this year. I felt like just people going down with injuries. I mean, you see Drake now has their best player out and everything, and Northern Iowa doesn't have Green right now, and it just throughout this year I've been watching it, and I'm like, it's really weird, all the teams, that are losing, and then all of a sudden you see Southern Illinois take Loyola to overtime in the last game of the year.
And Bradley beat Drake in the last game.
Bradley beat Drake. So it's up for grabs. I mean, there's no true favorite. I mean, Loyola obviously is the favorite right now, but anybody can beat anybody right now.
So I want to ask from a player's perspective, because coaches always say this: it's hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. You beat Evansville both times and they were both close games. You beat Evansville both times, and then you got to play them in the conference tournament. And it's crazy to think that this great run you guys went on almost ended before it started. I mean, they were 0-18, and you needed a Donovan Clay block at the end of the game in order to keep that thing from going to overtime. Going into that game, you're in St. Louis. It's your senior year. It could be the final time you put the jersey on, all of that. How much pressure was on you guys going against a team that had no pressure on them? They were 0-18.
Yeah. To me, I don't really remember that much pressure being on that game. It was kind of a little bit more of not a letdown, but it was like, Thursday again. Come on, really? So, I mean, we kind of went into it a little sluggish, I would say. Not hitting any threes didn't help much, but I mean, like you said, Evansville came in running and gunning because they had nothing to lose. So wasn't the most ideal situation, but somehow made it out of it. So that was great.
The low-scoring game, Javon played terrible. I think I shouldn't say that. Javon played terrible offensively. He did have 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. But, I mean, we have to remember, too, he was coming off of mono, I think, right? And so he was just inching his way back into it. This was a game, if I remember correctly, that the young kids, Clay and Cricky, combined for 26 of your 58 points. Donovan did amazing, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, 16 points. But you and Fazekas were not only did you guys miss shots, I mean, your whole team was 0 of 10 from the 3-point line. You guys didn't even really take a lot of shots. Was it something they were doing to keep you guys away from getting looks?
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah.
It was so long ago. I don't really remember.
I'd forgotten that you guys went 0 of 10 from the 3-point line in that game.
I remember that one because I remember we were pretty close to beating the most threes in the Missouri Valley tournament, and then we actually went on we had the record for winning a game with no threes in a game. So
yeah, absolutely.
that's the one of the biggest things I remember from that game is just not hitting a three. That's pretty much all I remember from that game.
So you win that one. Now you got to come play Loyola in a bit of a different situation. Whereas you go from playing a team that you've beaten twice to now playing a team that you've lost to twice, albeit both losses were one possession games. Both, especially the loss at Loyola, felt like the game was stolen from you guys a little bit. That turned out to be something that happened again this year. Um,
Yeah.
there's a ton of questions about this game. Obviously, you go to overtime because you and Ryan hit. Speaking of 3-pointers, you hit a pair of them with 28 seconds left. We talked on the phone. You and I did a couple days after the season ended, and you kind of alluded a bit about how hurt you were. But I don't think publicly, at least not on this podcast or anything like that, have you ever really talked about just how hurt you were? What was the process of getting ready to play a game on a couple hours rest, and how much pain were you in?
I mean, I was in pain, but it was I mean, adrenaline. I honestly didn't really want Ken or any any what am I trying to say?
Athletic trainers or anything?
Athletic. Yeah, it was we were going to play, and it was kind of like that final ride. So why waste time doing unnecessary things when you can just get your mind right and have the adrenaline pumping at the right time?
If you were a sophomore or a junior, do you think it would have been harder to get up for it because you were a senior? Do you think that pushed you through a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different. I mean, my first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, I didn't really think much of the conference tournament. I'm like, oh, another year, if we lose this game, it is what it is. But there, my junior year and then my senior year, most definitely, it's completely different because you're playing for something. You don't have another game to play. It's literally you lose and you go home. So it definitely brings more of an atmosphere for you versus some young guys. And you got to kind of hype them up for it all because they got another year. They got another year of college. There's not this, hey, it's over after this mentality. So
It looked over against Loyola. You were down 18 points. It looked over. A lot of teams are going to roll the ball to the center of the court and go home. If this is a semi-pro game in Indy, maybe I got other things to do with my time than sit here and get my ass kicked. How did you guys come back in that game?
Well, I think personally for our team last year, somehow nobody really had that mentality, and everybody was kind of just pissed off at losing to Loyola over and over and over on these close games and everything. And I believe, was that my sophomore year that we got thumped by Loyola in the tournament? Yeah. Just got, had no shot in that game. So it was kind of just like hey, we're over this. And it became we have nothing to lose. So let's just go for it. And my dad, every time we talk about basketball, he goes, I don't know how you guys came back from that. And I go back and watch. Well, I actually have never gone back and watched the full game. I've watched the last few plays of the game, and it still sometimes doesn't make any sense how that series of events happened out.
When you fire up the game, where do you start? Is it your 3-pointer to cut it to 3 late in regulation?
Yeah. Usually fire it up right there. That's usually where some of the YouTube clips start up. So that's usually where it comes on for me, especially because how often do I hit a step back 3-pointer? Not that often. So it is fun to see that.
I was doing the radio call with Todd Eichow, and I just obviously you wouldn't do this today, but we're standing next to each other, like grabbing each other's arms, you gotta be kidding me. You hit the shot, Guak gets fouled, he misses both free throws. Ryan, you got the rebound. Ryan hits a 3 off an assist from you. It's tied, and then you steal the ball, and you guys have a chance to win the game in regulation. What?
Yeah, I think Ryan's shot doesn't. after the game, it didn't get as much praise as it should have because he hit an insane shot just in the clutch. I mean, I wouldn't have hit that shot, and somehow getting the ball back with a chance to win it, I still am seriously confused at how we came back from 6 down with 20 whatever seconds left and had a chance to win it before overtime. So
I think I tweeted this out in July. There was times with like COVID where I was just kind of would get into a funk about, like, oh, I'm sitting in the house for a month straight, and every once in a while I would just fire up those YouTube clips, not necessarily because I'm sitting there cheering for you or for Ryan or for Valpo, but because it just reminded me of a time when life seemed a little bit simpler at that point.
right.
So now you go to overtime, and here comes Javon, hits a shot. Well, actually Kennedy scored, then Javon hit a shot, and it was a fight. It's low scoring, not that many points. I think only 11 points total in overtime. But I think you blocked a shot. You blocked Keith Clemens, who is a guy who just killed you most of the year last year, and you blocked a shot late.
Yeah, it was mostly a blur. No, I'm joking. I all of a sudden I don't know what exactly happened on that play, whether how Sackey turned the ball over or what happened, but I just turned around and saw Clemens going to the bucket, and I don't know what got into my legs at that point, or into my ankle, or my whatever. But it was fun, kind of just playing basketball and getting up there and doing things I used to do in high school.
I think you blocked it out of bounds actually. So they get the ball. I'm trying to think here. You guys were up one at this point. You guys had because Donovan's shot had given you guys a 1 point lead, and then Krutwig obviously hits both free throws. And now I think you guys called a timeout after the first free throw. You'd hit a crazy shot against UIC in a closed scrimmage earlier that we're not really supposed to talk about. I get in trouble for bringing it up, but and again, I know this is a blur, but was there a play in mind that you guys had miss or make from Krutwig?
No. I mean, at the end of regulation, we ran kind of the same play back to back where Daniel dribbled down, handed it off to me, and then we just go from there. So I think Coach Loddick just kind of was like, let's run a play and get it into, at that point, my hands with Ryan over there, and just options for stuff to happen. And luckily for me, I was either going to shoot that ball if Krutwig didn't come out, or I was going to drive it. And luckily, with how fast he was coming at me, I just, I was going to the hoop, and I was actually going to put it up. I was seriously going to put it up and have my career either end on me missing the shot or hitting the shot. But EG was just so wide open. It was perfect.
It felt like a fairy tale, that play. I mean, I listened to Todd Eichau's radio call of it earlier today, and it just felt like a fairy tale. I know it's not Bryce Drew's shot or Ryan Brokoff's shot or anything like that, and I know that it was only the quarterfinals and all that, but it felt like a magical March moment. What does it mean to be associated with a moment like that?
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's what you always dream of, being a part of some sort of moment in March as a basketball player, and getting a moment, even though, I mean, I was a part of it. EG hit the shot. I mean, thank you, EG, for hitting the shot. But it's still just great being a part of something that, I mean, is going to be a part of Valpo basketball for a while. So,
but then you got to go play Missouri State, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, Valpo beat Loyola and got to the title game." You had to play Missouri State. Now, you had beaten them by 15 like a week earlier, but it wasn't going to be an easy game. I think you scored 17 points in this game. I mean, you're not known as a 17-point a game scorer.
Yeah, Coach Gore, kind of after those games and then the tournament, was kind of just like, why didn't you just do this all 4 years? I don't think my body could handle it all 4 years, but Yeah, it was again, it just felt like high school again. Things kind of slowed down for me. I just kind of got into a groove and wasn't really thinking too much about the game, but just playing.
When you talk about a groove, this is when Javon woke up a little bit, and again, the guy was playing coming off of a mono, which until a year ago was like the one disease you never want to have. Now, obviously, COVID, but when a guy's that dialed in, I mean, obviously he missed all 4 of his 3-point attempts, but when he's that locked in, is it just kind of like fun to watch while you're on the floor with him?
It is extremely fun to watch. I actually watched some of his highlights from last year, the year before on YouTube again. YouTube's just a dark hole. You can get
Oh
going
yeah,
and find videos from a while ago, but just watching those, I'm like, man, the kid can just play. He just knows how to play. He's athletic. He, can shoot the ball, and it is fun. And I think throughout the year, I kind of got in a kind of a playing style of kind of watching him because it was fun to just watch. You get on the court and he does something, you're just like, wow.
yeah. It was unbelievable to kind of watch. Um, you win that game, and now you're gonna now it's a chance to play for the goal of every basketball player. I don't care if you're what level or anything like that. Getting to the March Madness, getting an NCAA tournament. Um, you guys are up 8, I think, in the second half, and then it just kind of falls apart. And you talked about having to play that 4th game, and I'm sure that was a big part of it. Um, and it's odd because Bradley won, but they didn't get to go to the NCAA tournament, right? Like, and I think I might have asked you this in like late March, early April, whenever we like did a season-ending interview or whatever. But is the sting of losing, does it go away a little bit, knowing the fact that like it might have hurt a lot more if you would have won and not been able to go to the NCAA tournament? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps the loss, but I mean, at the end of the day, if we would have won that game, yeah, we wouldn't have gone to the tournament, but our names would have been etched into the Missouri Valley tournament
Yeah.
history, and the school, it would have been etched into the school with the Missouri Valley tournament championship. So yeah, it does lessen the blow, but winning my last college basketball game would have been real fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, can you take me into the locker room after that loss? And I mean, does the adrenaline wear off immediately? I mean, you've been riding such an emotional high for 96 hours. Um, and now it's gutting. And I think at that point, you guys probably might have thought that you were going to play in another postseason tournament, although I'm sure that was no consolation to you guys at that point. But kind of take me into the mindset of the minutes and moments after that game, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, obviously it was hurting just because you know didn't win the game, upset, all these things. Um, I never really, the adrenaline. I slept better. That was for sure. After that, didn't have the band noise playing in my head every night. But I mean, it was more just uh, about not getting to play with those guys anymore. Um, and that's where when we talked about, and me and Ryan were asked about playing in a postseason game, we were kind of just like, if everybody else wants to play, we'll play. But if people don't want to play, don't want to be a part of the tournament, then I don't want to be out there with just
Like half
going
a
through
team.
yes, with half a team. I want to play with those guys. I want to have more games with them and have those experiences. And if people don't want to play, then it just it it might have ruined what we had gotten to at the end of the year there.
Have you kept up? I mean, obviously, look, you're watching nonstop Valley basketball. It sounds like because you pretty much know everything that's been going on this year. But do you have you kept up with any of the guys on the team, or is it kind of like awkward? Like, do you want to text these guys and be like, "Hey, I saw you could have done this and that," or what's your role with the current group?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you sit there and you watch on TV and you see some things that you're like, man, I would have done this and stuff. But um, I've kept up with some guys. I haven't given anybody like, hey, you need to be doing this. Hey, look at this and stuff. I mean, I've been giving Ben some stock advice here and there.
Ben Cricky, I asked him because he's been in quarantine over 100 days. I asked Ben, what did you do? And he said, I taught myself the stock market. It sounds like maybe you taught him the stock market a little bit.
Here and there. I gave him a tip on one stock before, and then he asked me about how I look through the stocks and pick one to look
was it GameStop?
No, I did not get on any of the GameStop or anything, unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Yeah, maybe it depends on your perspective. Yeah.
Either way you want to look at that. But no, I wouldn't say I taught him the stock market, but I did give him a hint on a few stocks here and there. Yeah.
Well, all of the listeners of this podcast are going to be trying to seek out your phone number and and get on that. Do you watch Javon at DePaul at all? Is that weird? Is it like a weird breakup? I don't know if breakup's the right word because it seemed amicable, but
I haven't been able to catch many of his games. I've only really been watching the Valley here and there just because, Valpa's on. I'll turn it on, look for a little bit, and then right now with double headers and stuff, most teams are playing the same night and the same day. So you kind of just flip between them, stuff like that. But I watched the Paul Valpo game and everything, and so I've seen a game and kind of looked at stats here and there, but haven't caught too many of the other games.
I think he's out with a concussion right now. I think he's been missing a couple of weeks. So I think he's getting set to come back pretty soon. But if you had one piece of advice for the Valpo team going into Arch Madness this year, what would your piece of advice be?
Don't waste the Friday night game. Don't waste only having to play 3 games. Just go out there and play your heart out. I mean, that's all you can really do in the tournament. It comes down to who can push themselves through the finish line, and I'm excited to see it because if they knock down some threes, they're a dangerous team to face. So.
I will ask you this objectively. You've watched these freshmen, these newcomers, these guys that weren't on the team when you were there. Any one of them stand out to you as a guy that you would have loved to have mixed it up with and practice a little bit?
I mean, all of them. Great class that came in. Jacob, I mean, can shoot the ball. I didn't quite text Ryan because I didn't know how his feelings would feel if I told him he might be a better shooter than him. But I went to the Purdue game and he knocked down a few that I'm like, he can stretch the court. And then Barrett, I mean, unfortunately he's out for the rest of the year, but he's a nice shooter too. And I mean, you need shooters in college basketball. You can't have, just all guards or they'll pack it in and stuff. So it's nice to see those guys being able to, make an impact shooting the ball. And then Edwards, I mean, just there's times that he frustrates me and there's times that I'm like, wow, he really, makes a huge difference out there. But frustrates, not.
Well, no,
just if I was on the floor, every once in a while, there's some things that I would be like, which I got that with Saki. I got that with, a lot of Donovan every once in a while. So it's, it would have been, I feel like they would have been just another, part of the team. They would have fit in great. And I think they're doing Coach Loddick, Coach Gore, everybody, Bowen, all are doing a great job of recruiting people who are going to fit in the team. And, it's exciting to see because, I mean, they had 49 points off the bench, I think, this last game. And
yeah,
I mean, that's huge. And to think that most of those guys are still going to be there next year and everything. And I guess everybody can be there next year. Forgot
Yeah,
about that.
crazy. Well, yeah, so that's my final question, actually. I think about Malik and Zion and Aaron. Zion and Aaron to be 60-year seniors if they wanted to be. Could you imagine signing up for another year of doing this?
Sorry, you cut
No,
out there for a second.
could you imagine signing up for another year of doing this?
Oh man, I mean, at the time, I might have been a little bit like, you know, after another year, which they played they played 27 games, 28
27, yeah,
games.
they played the
So
maximum that's allowed by the NCAA so far.
so they haven't just had just a regular, or a subpar season. They played all the games. So I mean, my body would obviously be feeling it. So it now, if you were looking at me now, I'd be like, heck yeah, sign me up for another year, just because college basketball is special and everything. But at the time, I'd be contemplating it in my head whether my body would be able to take another year of doing all that.
All right, final question. Actually, you've joined the professional workforce. What are you doing now? I don't know if you can talk about what you're doing. Because I don't know the answer of what you're doing. But you had such an interesting kind of academic road through Valpo, and I know you were someone who wanted to keep his options wide open. Finding a job with COVID, I'm sure, was not easy. But where did you settle into, and what are you doing with your life now?
Well, actually, the COVID probably helped me get the job, because we stopped, basketball wasn't happening anymore. So then I was able to go to an interview for the job that I ended up getting now. It's at a place called Thermo Systems. They're a control systems engineering group that we do HVAC systems. So right now HVAC and really all I've done right now is HVAC systems.
Okay, yeah,
We're I know they do other things. I
yeah.
just haven't been able to dip my toes in any of that yet. But we're working down in Bloomington at Catalent Pharmaceuticals. So they put up a new building, and we were the control systems engineering group for that, and we put up all the HVAC systems to heat and cool and keep the pressure in these clean rooms that are actually making the vaccine.
Oh, nice.
It's
Well,
cool
John,
oh,
you were a longtime fan favorite at Valpo, and then you had Arch Madness, and you've etched your name in Valpo lore. And I wonder who from this year's group can step up and make those plays, as well as Valpo will attempt to only have to win 3 games to go to the NCAA tournament as opposed to 4. So, John, I want to thank you very much for hopping on. It was great, and I know that everyone at Valpo misses you, and we'll be thrilled to hear from you.
yeah, thank you for having me on and getting to talk about all this stuff. It's fun to relive those moments and just kind of have a little bit more fun with it.
Absolutely. I mean, YouTube is going to have these moments forever. So thank you.